following podcast contains spoilers and adult language. So gitchy gitchy, ya ya da da, gitchy gitchy, ya ya here, mocha chocolata ya ya, Creole lady marmalade?
What?
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Bonjour, me la Steve.
And this week we're discussing Season 2, Episode 5 of Daryl, Dixon. Title of the episode is Vouloir, c'est Pouvoir. It's probably the only one we'll get right this whole season.
Oh, don't say that.
No, it's probably the only one. Although next week's episode, that's a pretty easy title, but yeah. Episode 5. It's done. All right. Look, you went first last week. I get to go first this week. Should we jump right into our thoughts on the episode?
Why not? Let's get it going.
This wasn't a great episode. We were talking offline before we started, and there were a few moments that I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I like that. Or, a nice character moment, or two characters together. There were a couple of those moments I really enjoyed, and there's some dialogue, but there were just far too many "are you kidding me" moments. And I just felt like, we were talking about the structure of a 6-episode season and how, like, usually it's like, when we're in comparison to, Walking Dead, it was an 8-episode season, they'd be sort of chugging along. And then all of a sudden they'd realize, oh God, we're going towards the mid-season finale or the season finale in 2 more episodes. And then all of a sudden everything is sort of shoved into those last 2 episodes. Whereas this has been sort of consistent, like it's very chock full of stuff most of the season. And it felt like last week had a lot of stuff. And it felt like this week it's almost like, I said before we started, it was almost like taking a little air out of the balloon. So I'm really hopeful that next week we'll jump back up and have that same kind of like tension and good scenes, like good meaty scenes, but I felt like this one was okay. It's my first one this year. I feel like it's okay. How about you? What did you think of episode 5?
I think very similar. It's funny because after this episode was over, I was thinking about, trying to put my thoughts together and, what did I think? What did I like? What I didn't like? All that kind of stuff. And I realized that for the first time, for this show, and it's pretty much been this way the whole season, that France is starting to resemble Delaware, Texas a lot. It's just the convenience factor is so high in this season. And I mean, you really get the sense that like France is like one little town with the one street and 2 bars and a grocery store. I mean, the people find each other so quickly. A car broke down, we got to walk. Well, that's all right. We'll quick travel to where we need to be, and then we'll quick travel from there to the underground club. I mean, it's just everything. Yeah. And then suddenly we're at the racetrack where the plane is, and then we're back at the underground club. I mean, it's just very, very convenient. And then it's like, I don't know why anyone is worried about finding anyone in this world, because literally it's like the second place you look, they're there. And out of all of France, it's the second place you look. And so it was the first time I went, oh, okay, that now I'm starting to get what was bothering me about it. And that's why it's very, again, of course, or isn't it convenient? And it's not because they're poor storytellers, which is what it would have been with, Fear. It's because they only have 6 episodes and they just don't have time ain't no one got time for that, right? They can't break it down and actually spend a little bit more and make the search for this character or that character a little longer, because there's like we got to move, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought there was a couple of great scenes in here that, I'm sure we'll cover it. I think we have a lot of the same points. And my biggest comment, I guess, would be is that, we've completed another episode, and yet we have another main villain to deal with, because they just are going, people.
They are a dime a dozen in France.
They really are. It's
exchange rate for villains in France. I mean, I thought the euro was a lot stronger.
Yes,
frankly.
Who knew, right? Who knew that it's like 3 for a euro right now? I mean, it's so. But So again, not my favorite, not the best one of the 5 we've gotten so far. It was just kind of more like an episode, I think, is the way I look at it. Where it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible, it just was.
Yeah, so. Agreed. All right, so before we get into our thoughts, of which we have some of the same thoughts, I almost said same thoughts. That's crazy. We do have some of the same moments written down. It's great. Let's first get into the episode description. So if you want to go ahead and take care of that, my friend.
All right. Well, this week's episode is being brought to you by...
Don't you hate it when you get caught in a bold-faced lie? Doesn't it suck when you manipulate someone and they find out about it and are angry with you? If only there was a way to smooth over that relationship awkwardness. Well, now there is. Knucklehead Industries has teamed up with Quasi Cowo Kitchens to create I Can't Believe You're Pissed. I Can't Believe You're Pissed is a non-dairy spread that will help smooth over any hurt feelings that may occur when your relationship manipulations are brought to light. I Can't Believe You're Pissed is perfect for missing a birthday because you didn't want to go, ghosting someone's moving day after you agreed to help, pretending your dead child is alive to manipulate someone who is also grieving for a dead child into flying you to France to look for a grown-ass man, and many, many more. So what are you waiting for? Get yourself a tub of I Can't Believe You're Pissed today. Available in regular and new sour cream and chive flavor. Perfect for those extra big lies. I Can't Believe You're Pissed. Helping to solve the problems of sociopaths everywhere.
Well, I know I'm going to run right out and buy some.
I mean, it depends. Will it pair with a nice sourdough? Can I spread it on? And, like a good chunky, like sourdough toast. That's what
you know what? I think it's pretty much a non-dairy spread that will go on anything. So, I mean, those Knucklehead Industries guys, they don't muck around, right? They come up with some pretty good products to help you, in
Oh, for sure.
Life, so.
Definitely. And if there's a reliable industry out there, it's definitely Knucklehead Industries.
They are the Acme of the zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
So, and for a certain audience, you know what I'm talking about. People of a certain age, you get it. All right, so the episode in question is, once again, it's The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. Season 2, episode number 5, and as we said, it's called Vouloir, c'est Pouvoir. And kind of a, it's like dueling translations, I think. And I in the little featurette, I believe the director did say, like, he translated it too, but I don't remember what he said exactly. But what we have is to want is to be able, and then there's another translation out there, and I think this was off of Google, that says wanting is power. So it's like you kind of pick your poison there. And the description that we have is a newly formed faction of survivors hunts down Laurent. Carol's lies come to a head. That's why she needs I Can't Believe You're Pissed.
Yeah. I hope it works for her, because it's not looking good.
No, it's not. Ash did not handle that well at all. So
No, he was not a happy camper.
No.
So let's talk writers and director for the episode, and get some info there.
Sure. Well, it's going to sound familiar with last week, because the writers for this week's episode are also the writers of last week's episode, and that's Jason Richman and David Zabel. And again, Jason Richmond, who wrote 3 episodes from season 1 of Daryl, and 2 of them he wrote with David Zabel. He wrote 1.2 Alouette and 1.5 Du Amour, and then he wrote 1.6, which was Coming Home, and he wrote that with a gal named Laura Snow. And then this season, the 2 of them wrote 3 episodes. They wrote 4, 5, and 6. So they wrote last week's episode, Le Paradis pour tout, and 2.5 with this week's episode, Vouloir, c'est Pouvoir, and the season finale next week, which is entitled Au revoir les enfants. And again, so those 3. David Zabel, again, same thing. The only difference is on season 1, he wrote the first 2 episodes. He wrote L'âme perdue, which was the very first episode, by himself. And then he wrote Alouette with David Zabel, and then Du Amour with David Zabel. And then obviously the same 3 for this season, which is 4, 5, and 6. And that is your writers. And then our director is Daniel Percival. And Daniel Percival is, we've talked about him a bunch. He, last season, he directed episodes 1, 2, and 5, and 6 of Daryl. And then this season, he's directed 2 and 5. So he directed Moulin Rouge and this episode. And he is already on listed as being the director for episode 2 of next season, season 3. So he will be back next year.
Sweet.
And that is your writer and your director.
Sweet. So we kind of pick up where not really left off. You drive off into the sunset, but they're in the car that now won't start.
The car breaks down. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we surprised?
Mm-mm.
No. So now they have to walk, which of course means that they'll have to talk. So they do a bit, and Carol starts to, because they're making their way back to the hangar. Basically, they're heading straight there, and Carol's trying to warn Daryl. Maybe I should talk to him first, and I should. He doesn't. He wasn't, and I love all of her excuses she uses to try and insulate the whole thing. He was on his own for so long, and he's his first real, he's out in the world, and Daryl's kind of well, he's here, he's out in the world, how was you he basically is how is you talking to him first going to put him at ease or whatever. So he's just kind of
when he goes nah, I'm talking to him.
Yeah, he's yeah.
Carol's damn it.
And it's also his protective nature. He wants to make sure he enters a building first because he's trying to also be physically protective of Carol too. So he does that, and I gotta say, they have their conversations, and I can't remember, did she came out with what she said to him? No, was it after they got there?
Yeah,
or on their way?
No, it's later on when they go into the stands of the racetrack, and they're kind of sitting there, and that's when she finally comes clean about what she did to Daryl.
Yeah. So before she comes clean, and they show up at the hangar, and there's been some they see some walls have been put up, some fencing to sort of barricade himself in. And she's like, oh, he's been busy. And I'm like, of course he's been busy. He lived behind an electrified fence for how many years? And now he's out in the open. Of course he's going to do whatever he can to be, as protected as he can. And not only did he work on the, some type of wall or surround or barrier, but as soon as you step inside, there's tripwires, and he set up these really great, which I thought were really cool. He had these booby traps that just sort of swung down to sort of pierce whoever, stab, impale, whatever.
They're straight out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Awesome. It's really, really good. And he had those set up in a couple of different areas, pretty much all the different doors and openings. And I thought those were really cool. I thought it was a really great sort of nod to, adventure movies like a Raiders of the Lost Ark. So yeah.
I just liked it where, she's like trying to tell Daryl that, okay, I did something kind of not really nice to get here. And he's like, well, what'd you do? And she's like, well, and she's like dancing around, right? I mean, they probably cut out the scene where she stopped and put on her dancing shoes,
right?
But because she is tap dancing up a storm, trying to like make her sound as good as possible,
and
right?
I think too, like that's a sign that your lie is terrible.
Yes.
If you can't even admit it to someone who like. He's going to care about you no matter what.
Right.
He's come back from the brink with Carol many times.
He's going to love you no matter. Yeah. There's nothing you can say to him that he's going to be like, that's it, I'm done,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, in this instance, that's how bad it is that So it's great because like my line sort of led into the one that you put too.
Yeah.
So first she's like, well, I embellished some facts. He's like, you lied.
She's like, well, and she's still she can't say it, and he's like, what, you tell him I'm your brother or something? And she's like, oh no, nothing like that. But it was so funny because at that line I could just hear Yvette Nicole Brown and all the shippers going, no. So
yeah,
he is not her brother. Stop saying that.
Stop saying it. But yeah, that was it was funny because like you were saying, she was dancing around the topic for so long, and and finally he's just like he's like you said, he's sitting out, and because this woman that he was like sort of falling in love with is now gone, so he's got a lot of emotions going on. Carol shows up out of nowhere. He's trying to find the boy. There's a lot going on for Daryl emotionally. So he's trying to like get like a few minutes, and then she comes up and tells him. And when she says, she basically is like, well, he had a kid and he's like, I got it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like he's basically like, now I know why you said what you said.
Yeah.
Because until she mentions that Ash had a child that he lost, and she was trying to make it better by, I needed a way to connect with him. I needed a way to, whatever. And I'm like, you can try and make this sound better all you want.
All you want. Yes. Yeah. I kept in my head, I kept thinking, yeah, wonder how Ash is going to feel about that.
What's interesting? I just thought of like, so because of this, now Daryl is a part of this lie. So, one would think that Ash is going to feel a certain way about Daryl because he's connected with Carol, who would tell this lie,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it makes you feel kind of like kind of yucky. But so because she sort of unwittingly pulled Daryl in on this, and then later when she actually says what she did and tells Ash, I'm pretty sure, did she say she was sorry to anybody? I don't
know. She
know
really
that
didn't.
She did.
She kept saying like, but we bonded, and because and he kept being like, no, and every excuse she tried, Ash was just like, that doesn't work.
She even said stuff along the lines of like, I did what I had to do, or I was forced, or like I had to do something, and you know what I mean? But it was inappropriate. I took advantage of a situation. I shouldn't have never done that. I was desperate. Let me tell you why Daryl means so much to me, and he's so important to me. And I wasn't sure that you know what I mean? If she came from the heart and was like, I'm not sure I could have conveyed how important he was to me. Mm-hmm. And I knew that you would connect with a lost child, and it was terrible to do that.
No. Yeah. And I mean, I have this later on, but Carol tells Ash at one point, I told you what I needed to convince you to help me. And Ash goes, so that makes it all right? Ash, every excuse she has, he just, and again, he is entrenched on the moral high ground, right? I mean, it's like Carol, you're not going to win this. You just got to walk away. Just like, yes, I'm a bad person here. I mean, it's just There's no way around it. But every time she tries to come up with these noble reasons for basically lying through her teeth to him about this, specifically to manipulate him and play on his own dead child, and all of the guilt he has towards his boy. There's no way that she can come out smelling like a rose. But at this point, it's a fun scene because it's Daryl and Carol, and it's very much has a feel of, Walking Dead, where they just kind of have a moment and they're having a conversation, because what else are you gonna do, right? I mean, you can't look at your phone, you can't do anything else, and so it has kind of that playful relationship between them that we're used to. But again, Carol does kind of swerve into very, serious, this is not going to end well, parts of the conversation. And it's almost like she's like, I'm going to like kind of float this out to Daryl as a test, and see how he reacts, who really doesn't have a horse in the race, and then I will adjust based on how he does. And it doesn't really go all that well with him. He's obviously not nearly as pissed as Ash is, but I mean, I think at some point here, he's like, well, you got to tell him, you can't keep lying to him. So, he at least is trying to be like, well, all right, so you lied to get here. I'm glad you're here, but, he deserves to know the truth. And so, I just thought it was interesting that she did kind of like, I'm gonna float this out to you first, and then I'm gonna take some notes, and then I'll adjust, later on. And then I think they get interrupted then, because then they come up to the stadium, and that's when they see all the booby traps and all the barricades and stuff he'd assembled, and of course they go in there and he's not in there, and so now we don't have time for this small talk anymore. We got to find him, and then I think right at that point they cut to like showing what happened to Ash, where he's like running for his life from a horde of ghouls, and he gets into this SUV because that's what you do, and they surround it, and then like, I don't know, one of them is pushing on the door, and he tries to like open the door and kind of push it off, and it very suddenly slams the door in his face, and it hits him in the head and gives him a concussion. And so then he kind of like just passes out in the driver's seat, and again, there's probably like, what would you say, like 40 ghouls maybe that are surrounding this SUV. So we get this little snapshot of what happened to him, and it certainly doesn't look promising for him, right? I mean, he's in a world of hurt, unarmed. Now he's like concussed and, basically surrounded. So, but then they cut away from that, and we're back to, the present day. And I think at that point, then they cut back to the rooftop community where Falou and Laurent have gone, and there's a knock at the door. Yeah.
And it's Cadron. And it's very surprising. And you and I both included the same line. Falou is just honest with him. Why would you come here? What made you come here? And he was honest. He said he had nowhere else to go.
Yeah, nowhere else to go. Yeah. And I kind of liked this, first of all the Cadron scenes I thought in this episode were really good.
Yeah, they were some of my favorite things. Yes.
Yeah. And what I like about it is that in this episode, and I mean, certainly in last episode too, he really is a man without a country at this point.
Yeah.
And that, everything that he used to have, like all of his little unit of soldiers, they're all dead. He kind of teamed up with Janae for a little while and kind of was becoming like part of her group, but then he let Daryl and Laurent go, and now they've obviously she cut off 2 of his fingers, right? And and then he certainly can't go back to Laurent and Daryl. So I mean, he literally is just I just like that line when Falou's like, "What made you come here?" And he just, without even like raising his head, he's just like, nowhere else to go. And yet you start. I like Cadron now. I'm like, that dude, I would want him on my team. I mean, he's
I
a really
know.
good fighter, and he certainly is a believer, and
Hmm.
you can certainly use that. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed all of the Quadron stuff that's in here. I love the scenes with Laurent. I love when he sneaks him out of the compound when they all show up, and I love the bit at the end when he meets Daryl, and I mean, Daryl killed his brother, right? If you remember from last season. So there's no love lost between the two of
He
them.
actually didn't. Remember?
Well,
It was those people that he ran into. They killed him, and
I
they
thought
blamed.
I
Didn't.
thought, okay, so I thought I know the guy got like the lance ran through him, but I thought that Daryl had, kind of started that fight. But anyway, I mean, in any case, Quadron certainly is blaming him for it, and that was the whole premise of last season. Why
for
he
sure,
wanted to
yes,
kill
absolutely.
the American, right? And so there's no love lost between them. And at the end, I mean, like they like kind of like almost shake hands, right? And Daryl's like, "Oh, you won," and all that kind of. So it's like, all right, maybe Quadron is going to become an ally here. I mean, again, probably going to die next week, but still, it's fun right now, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I like what you're saying too about like he'd be someone good to have on your team. I think he's he was a man without a country, but his thing was the thing that guided him, as misguided as it was a lot of those guys, it's faith for them. So he's got this, this faith. And if they can tap into that and get him on their side, I mean, he'd be very loyal, very, very loyal, and would be such a great addition to their group, the rooftop people, if they can, show him another way of approaching it, a way of living a life, I mean, because he's never going to go back to being that military guy ever again.
He's never going to be a guerrier again.
Yeah, he's not going to fight for someone, but perhaps he might defend for someone, like that's why his allegiance sort of shifted. That's what was it the last episode, the episode before? That was the last episode when he was like, I did it for the boy, and that's like this whole episode. I kept thinking of those lines. That line in my head was, he's motivated by something that's really important to him, and and you can't really touch that. It's almost, and he's got the faith in the kid, and it's really interesting to watch. It's amazing to me. I'm glad he made it through to the second season too, because now we're at this point where he's been given a lot of these episodes to sort of grow, and we're really able to get layers to him, which we're not able to get with everybody because of, so many, shorter season, et cetera, but he's been a really interesting character to follow and to see his growth and change. And I'm excited to see how it pans out. I mean, yes, it doesn't look good for him because, we know like history it's not on his side in this case, but it's worthwhile to think that, maybe he might make it through. Maybe, who knows?
They maybe make it at least into next year and the next season. But
yeah, maybe. Let's cross your fingers. Maybe. Yeah.
But I also enjoyed that, or really liked that. When he's there and Falou and everyone. I mean, they're like going to throw him out. They're like, you can't stay. I mean, they didn't say that, but certainly they're pointing their guns at him. They don't trust him. They know his history. And Laurent kind of shows up and is like, no, he saved us. He let us go. He killed the guys that were with him that had gone with, Genet had sent out to find us and kill Daryl and Isabel and Sylvie and bring me back. And he stopped it. He's the reason I'm here now at all is because of him, and that, I thought that was a real interesting moment that, I mean, all Laurent did was tell the truth and say what happened, but it was very significant because all those people are going to believe him because he's the chosen one. So so I thought that, and that kind of got Quadron sort of like a hall pass to be like, well, okay, you can stay, just don't do anything weird, Yeah,
exactly.
So but anyway, it's almost like he anointed himself then as Laurent's bodyguard. And
yes,
that's his job, is like, I'm just going to make sure that the kid's okay. And thank goodness he was, because when Losang and, you know, all the bad guys show up, you know, Quadron is like, let's move, boom, 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 let's go. Yeah, I mean, it's like he gets that kid moving and spirits him away, right? And again, Falou and everybody help out a little in their own little way, but if Quadron hadn't been there, you know, the kid probably would have just walked up and went like, "Hi, Losang," you know. I mean, so it was really good. So yeah, I like I said, the scenes with him were some of the highlights for me, without a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. It happens like so you have the Quadron showing up thing. And then not long after that, you have Daryl and Carol showing up at the rooftop group there. Mm-hmm. And then they're there for a little while, and then they leave, and so it's like back and forth, like you were saying, fast travel.
Yeah.
But there's a great scene, and you know, since we're on Quadron, you know, he has this great moment with Laurent, and they're talking about, you know, his motivations and things like that. But Quadron has this line, and you and I both included it, and I just, he's talking about himself, and he says anger is a disease. And I just think it's such a great line to use in this context too, because it's so easy to get angry in those times, and he lays out all the reasons why he was angry, mm-hmm. you know, and he sort of not justifies, but, you know, I was angry at the time because of XYZ or whatever, but then he realizes that it's, you know, that it'll eat you alive pretty much. And he's, you know, turned over a new leaf, I guess. I don't know. And I love that the conversation about strawberries and bananas and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it was just so, it was a great scene. I feel like it didn't pander. It wasn't forced. You know, they're just two people sort of getting to know each other and understanding each other. And I thought it was, to me, honestly, that was the best scene of the whole episode, was Quadron and Laurent talking. I really liked it.
First of all, what do you think bananas taste like? So if someone were to ask you, describe what a banana tastes like,
how do you?
Again, it's like, I mean, I just keep coming back to, well, they taste like bananas.
That's right.
You know, and so that was really interesting. But I too, again, like I said, I love these scenes, but it just, you know, Quadron kind of has that, you know, on the road to Damascus moment there, where he's like, he's telling that story about how when, you know, they were going to kill all those people, Daryl and Isabel and Sylvie, and take the boy back, or maybe kill the boy too. I can't remember. And you know, he says that line where he's like, it was at that moment, for the first time ever in my life, I felt like God was watching me and was wanted to see what I was going to do in that moment. And I mean, it literally is his coming to Laurent moment. I mean, you know, that's what it was after that moment that he's like, you know, I mean, clearly believes that there's something about this kid. And it was a really well acted scene between the two of them. And, you know, I think, doesn't Laurent ask him about, you know, why were you after Daryl? And he says, he killed my brother. And was your brother a bad guy? And he said no. And then he said that you know, I failed him because I didn't protect him, and all this stuff. And then he says, you know, it's the reason why I was after you is I was angry. You know, and anger is a disease, and it makes you do terrible things. And then they talk about fear, and Laurent goes, fear also makes you do terrible things, which was another great truth bomb line. It really was, And then he, you know, basically Laurent, I should say Quadron, I almost got the sense in a way that this was almost like a confession, like, you know, he was sort of, you know, confessing his sins to this guy, to this kid. And, you know, he keeps saying, I hope someday you can forgive me for, you know, all the bad stuff that I, you know, did to you and to Isabel and Daryl and everything. And Laurent's like, I already forgave you. I just hope that one day you will forgive yourself. And I mean, I thought Quadron was gonna cry, man. I mean, he was just like, oh my God, you know. I know. But yeah, it was a really, really, really cool scene. But but before we got to that scene, you're right. Daryl and Carol show up, and they're looking for Ash, and Falou's like, well, there's only one place to go if you need information around here.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't think she likes me anymore.
Yeah, I'm not very popular in that place. But anyway, so they go back to the underground club, right? And you and I both wrote down, it's like, damn, that Mona Lisa gets around.
She does. And it's funny because as soon as you see it too, like, I made a note too that it's Carol really is the only one in the group that gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Daryl's been in that club before and he knows, Quinn, he had a couple of paintings and whatever. So it wouldn't matter to them, but Carol knows where it was before.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
She knows that them having that painting, I mean, they saw Janae be killed, so they know that she's gone. But the fact that they have the painting means that it's all collapsed.
Yeah,
there's nothing there,
Mm-hmm.
At least at their hub at the Maison Mère. There's the shit has fallen apart there clearly, and that painting says it right there. So I wonder, does that mean that she has the power? It's possible.
I mean, clearly she has a lot of authority. I mean, when we get into a little later, because Daryl, goes back to the club, right, and later on, and there were some times there where I'm almost like, you might want to ease up a little bit there, Anna, because some of your like big henchman guys might not get tired of, taking orders from you and kill you, particularly the guy with the ethanol. I mean. That guy was not too happy when she's like, did I tell you? Does it sound like you're expressing an opinion or whatever she said to him, But yeah, I remember back in season 1 when they first go there, there's a huge scene about they got some original piece of, painting, and Quinn was all, giddy about it, right? And they're sort of like, we're preserving all this stuff. So clearly that club, one of their things they do is the reason you go there is that they've sort of, kind of spirited in a lot of these, master works of art that are throughout Europe and have them there. And obviously, is there anything bigger than the Mona Lisa? I don't think so. So clearly that's a huge get for Anna that they have it. And at the same time, it also just lets Carol know that, wow, that organization is done. Janae's group is done. And I think right after we see that, Carol spots a couple of guys with the tattoos, and she's like, oh, that looks like Janae's men. And Daryl's like, not anymore. Looks like they're joined, Team Anna. And so, even more confirmation that Janae's movement is pretty much over, But anyway, I loved it when they walk in and Daryl sees Anna and goes up to her, and Anna looks up and goes, Daryl Dixon, I heard you were dead. And he just goes, not yet. But anyway, I mean, I as a huge diehard fan of Escape from New York, that just made me giddy, because it's a running gag throughout that movie that everybody that meets Snake Plissken keeps going, I thought you died, I heard you were dead, so I love that little moment. That was beautiful. My comment was, all he needs is the eye patch, so going back to the club was interesting because I mean the first couple of times we see the club in season 1, Daryl, and first of all you get Daryl going in there and he's like, I'm sure Daryl's been to a bar or two. I mean, come to find out, so did Isabel. Mm-hmm. But, now you have a nun in a bar. That's very interesting. But this was an interesting sort of, I don't know, I guess kind of uncomfortable pairing. It's very bawdy. It's very sexual there. Oh, boy.
And it's all very in your face. They're performing on stage, but they're also... the ladies and the men are coming up to people and, propositioning, I suppose, whatever. And, this one gal, she comes equal opportunity. She rubs up on Daryl and he's just like, yeah, no thanks. And then she's like, oh, well, girls too. And starts like rubbing on Carol, and Carol's super uncomfortable. But then at the last second, she's got the wherewithal and realizes that the girl was trying to take her knife. And she's like, thank you,
No.
but no,
Yeah.
I'll be keeping that.
And the
But
girl kind of gives her a look like, wow, whatever.
You're no fun.
Yeah, but it's like, you're stealing.
Yeah. But I thought it was interesting because I don't know why, but I felt Carol's uncomfortableness way more than Isabel's uncomfortableness in season 1. And I don't know why, but there's just something about, I think because Carol is still probably jet lagged from getting over here. I don't know, but it's like she's in a whole, like, how crazy is it that she's in France to begin with? And then on top of it, it's like, this isn't just a gathering place. They've got lights, they've got music, they've got like microphones. Like it's very jarring. She came from, the Commonwealth, which does have some stuff, but to go from that to like bright lights and someone gyrating on you and wearing, leather is a very different situation. And it's just,
I just call that a great evening, but whatever.
Yeah, that's just a Saturday night. But I think too, it's also, she's uncomfortable and doesn't know, like, it's overwhelming. You know what I mean? It's uncomfortable and it's overwhelming, and you can tell. But the other thing is that Daryl is so comfortable there. He's just like, yeah, I've been here before, whatever, big deal.
Yeah. Nothing to see
Tits
here.
and ass, who cares?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I just got the sense that she was just trying to process the whole thing because, again, it's like a club in the before time, smack dab in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, like 12 years later. And that's like you said, that's just a lot to take in. And the showrunners one-upped it because this time around they actually have the bar playing the song Lady Marmalade, when they come in.
Right.
I mean, the group is at that awesome maitre d' character from last season is back as the lead singer, right? And he's lip syncing to Lady Marmalade, but it was amazing, and they're all doing the different dance steps and everything, and that's what they walk into, and Carol's just like, what? And I'm sure Daryl's like, yeah, it's a bar, but it's like, yeah, I don't think you understand what we're going into here,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was amazing. And then of course Daryl kind of like knows people there, and is like, hey, what's going on, and all that stuff. So that didn't make it any easier for Carol.
Yeah. No, it's to have that contrast right there. Like he's got no problem with what's going on in here. I'm having problems. I can't even adjust to this, and it's just moving right along. But it was interesting. We get to see Anna again, and she's in charge. She's running that club, which we're not surprised. But they need fuel, and they're like, okay. No, this isn't the fuel one.
At this point, they're just looking for Ash. So they're trying to see if anybody has seen him or knows about him. And Anna kind of comes clean of like, well, a couple days ago, a plane flew over Paris, and I sent a couple of guys out looking for it. They never came back, And we kind of
they're like, how about that?
Yeah. Well, and we kind of skipped over that. But when they did go into the area where Ash had set up all those defenses, there were several ghouls that were like had tripped the booby traps and were there. And first of all, I was just it made me so happy that Daryl went up and killed all of them. And so many times in these shows, we've complained about, why are you not killing that ghoul that's like right now it's impaled on the wall, but what if it gets free? You know what I mean? It's like, and they how many times they don't, and it's just like, that's dumb. You would do that. Well, he did, but then one of the guys that was impaled was still alive.
Yes.
And and literally he kind of says, we were looking for the plane, and then he just looks at Daryl and he's like, please kill me, just kill me. And Daryl's like, I got this, and takes him out. But anyway, so they kind of knew that when she said that, that's like, oh yeah, that was that guy. We met him, so
yeah.
So they knew. But yeah, at this point they're looking for Ash. And they
They get the use of a car, right?
Right, they do,
She
and
lets them-
weapons, because they get the idea that maybe he could have been taken to the Maison Marrier, and so they're like, all right, well, we have to go there. And you were talking about signs that Genet's regime is over. Well, when they finally when they pull up there, right, all the guards up by the gate are dead. And then they start working their way through, and then there's that great crane shot where it cranes upwards, and you see all of the ghouls that are like on that embankment that's part of the wall. Like Genet's place, you literally have to go like through the hill to get to it. Inside it, and so it's just more evidence that once she died, this place just fell apart in a heartbeat. And, it was every person for themselves. And all you have left now are the dead that are just kind of roaming around. So yeah.
Yeah. It's not good. They sort of fan out, like looking for stuff, and, I'll look here, you look here kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Carol like ends up in like this little office room.
We're going to get an of course moment.
And she just reaches there's like a million things going on in this office. She opens the drawer and reaches in, and the first thing that she touches is like the dictaphone recorder that Daryl was using. And you pointed it out, she presses the button to play, and it's queued right up to Daryl talking.
Right up to him. In there. Of course it is.
Yeah. And then Daryl comes in, he's like, hey, I found something. And she's like fumbling to try and put it in her pocket. Did she keep it? Do you remember?
I don't remember if she did or not. I just remember she turned it off. She just like,
because that's like, having a tape player like that's Chekhov's tape player. And if she took it with her, then something's going to happen.
Oh, they need to like.
And I don't know. She's going to hit the play button when she shouldn't have. Or maybe she'll record something that someone says.
Well, or she'll
able to like play it back to them or something.
Or like they'll need to like sneak past somebody, and so they'll like turn it on and leave it under a car, and then the people will hear Daryl talking and go, shh, there's someone over there. Let's go sneak up on them. And then they'll tiptoe over there, and then Daryl and her will be able to get around them or something, right? Yeah. That was a really interesting scene for me too, because she comes in there and there's like a dead guy in there, and there's this machine gun on the desk and all these spent cartridges and belts of ammunition and stuff. And so clearly that was like a choke point where they were trying to hold people off. But the machine gun that he was using, and again, I'm just a nerd, was it's an MG42, which is a German World War II era machine gun. And again, just yet another nod that they've done this season to like giving this a feel of like occupied France in like 1944. And everybody kind of dresses like the resistance, and then Genet's people all wore black, and they were kind of like the SS and very German and their approach and stuff. And anyway, I just thought that was a real interesting touch, that was the kind of machine gun that this guy had on the desk. And it kind of goes along with what you've said previously, in that in these people, once they started to look for weapons, they like had to go to museums and get these kind of relics from 70 years ago, 80 years ago in many cases. And again, the MG42, perfectly good machine gun, it works great and all that, so why not? But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. And then literally right after she sees that on the table, that's when she opens the drawer and tape player, play button, Daryl's voice, so
how about that? Interesting. And then he's like, come and look, and she's like, I'm coming right after you. I'm not going to bring the big machine gun that could possibly help out in the situation.
And particularly
and why wouldn't he say something? Like, because he saw it. Yeah. And then he came to get her. So wouldn't you grab that big machine gun and maybe do something with it? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because again, remember, they go through that like area where there's all those ghouls that are penned up, and they go down this like hallway that's to one side of it, right? And they have the glass panels, and she's like looking to see is Ash in there,
Is he in there?
And they're like, and that's what he wants to show her. That's what Daryl wants to show her, and she's like, I don't see him, I don't see him, I don't see him. And they get all the way to the end, and there's a window that looks out into the courtyard, and Daryl goes, well, what about that? And looks out, and there's the minivan still surrounded by all these ghouls that are like trying to get in.
Yeah, and they're like, something's alive in there.
Something's got to be in there. But again, seeing that, oh my God, there's like 50 ghouls out there. Why don't we go get this machine gun? And that will help us clear them out, But they didn't. So whatever. Okay.
It's so funny because the rescue scene with Ash and the car, the SUV or whatever, it had both one of my favorite moments of the show, of the episode, and also one of my least favorite moments of the episode. So let's go the bad stuff first, because I didn't include it in my notes, but we included the good stuff because it was great. Oh, yeah. But first of all, I hate when there's a scene where someone is stuck inside a car or inside a place and they're surrounded by ghouls, and then people come upon it and they're going to try and save that person. Mm-hmm. I will never, ever, 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 ever understand why they don't, Molotov cocktail or something to distract them. Yeah. Set up something that makes a bunch of noise and pulls them away from that car. What do? They start attacking them like head on.
He whistles.
Yeah.
And some of them turn around and then they wade into them.
I hate that, because here's the thing, and we've talked about this many times, not just on Fear, because they were great at it, but on the main show too. And it's like, you're two people, you've got, let's say for the sake of argument, you've got 40 ghouls around that car, right? Mm-hmm. So that's 20 apiece. Wouldn't you like to improve your odds of living by reducing that number as much as you can? Now, here's the thing. Whatever distraction or noise thing that they set up, it will pull the ghouls from that vehicle, but it won't take all of them, right? Let's go law of averages. So let's say like 15, not 15, I'm sorry. I was thinking of 15 apiece. Let's say like a good 25 to 30 of them get lured away, but there's, somewhere like about 10 or so that might still stay behind. Isn't that so much easier to handle?
Oh, sure.
Just so much easier. I will never get it. There's countless times where we've watched the show and there's a scene like that. And don't get me wrong. I know if there's the zombie apocalypse, I don't have any skills. And I'll probably be not in the first panic wave, but in the first like survival wave, like, oh, we need to start gardening and doing all this other stuff and saving our resources and defending our resources. That's when I'd probably die. But
I think you'd get dysentery and die.
Thank you. Yeah. But the thing is that even though I know the logic states that you would want to have to deal with the least amount of ghouls possible. And they use their guns. The first thing they do is use their guns.
Yeah.
Which means now you're going to attract more. So there's 40, but in 5 minutes, there's going to be 50.
Or 60 or 70.
Yeah, you don't know. They're roaming all over the place. So anyway, I hate that.
It's again, we often comment like that's the move of someone that's in like day 2 of the zombie apocalypse, who just doesn't know any better, and these characters clearly know better. And the number one rule in the Romero universe is that ghouls are dum-dums, and they are very easily distracted away. And why not try and do that? But even then, their plan was so stupid. It's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, you've got like 10 bullets in your pistol, and I've got like 5 bullets in my shotgun. And so we're going to wade into those 60 ghouls and fire all the bullets we have, and hopefully we'll get to the car. Okay. Now
Yeah.
they'll still be covered with ghouls. And now by that point, they'll be all around us. So not even just like coming in one direction, but everywhere. Then we're going to get in the car, hopefully, and close the door. And then in the car, where we have one bullet left between the two of us, we're going to try and get him out of there. What kind of plan is that? That's stupid. It's like, no. So yeah, I agree. It's completely done for suspense. I mean, that's all it is. That's just television 101. We have to put our characters in danger. Let's make it exciting. In real life, no, they wouldn't. They would throw it, just like throw like a bottle.
Yeah.
And have it break somewhere, and that's going to start drawing them off. I mean, it very easily. And again, go back and get the machine gun. That would have been a cool scene.
Yeah. Then you could mow them down.
Yeah.
Move quickly, get Ash out of that car and run. Like, right, but, I don't understand.
And again, a lot of it too is set up. They had to get them in a hopeless situation, so then Daryl could do the cool, use the dart gun and create the super ghouls and let them, literally chew through everybody, right? I mean, it's just again very much almost. I think you could say that it would be on the Ain't It Cool list, where the writers were like, what would be cool?
I know.
Is if we could have them surrounded and then they make a super ghoul and then have that ghoul like wipe out all the other ghouls. Ooh, good idea. Yeah. So again, rather than having the story create the story as you're going, they have these specific set pieces and we build the story around them maybe, and not always a good idea. Again, the scene with Super Ghouls is amazing, and we're going to talk about it now in a minute, I'm sure, anyway, and it was fun. But yeah, these two characters, I just don't see them doing something that dumb, ever. So I agree. I'm right there with you. I agree.
Yeah. But then, God, it's such a Sophie's Choice moment because their whole barrage on trying to get, Ash out, they're not even sure Ash is even in there. And they're willing to, that's the thing too. Oh God, so frustrating. Anyway, so they fight their way-ish to the SUV, open the doors, jump in, and he's, it's so funny because he's almost drunk because he's concussed. And he's
he's dehydrated.
Carol. And I'm just like, oh God, this is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Well, then he looks at Daryl and he's like, "Who are you?" and Carol's like, "Don't worry about that right now.
Let's get you some water. You're dehydrated."
Yeah. And she's like, "We're here to get you out of here." And he's like, "I'm here to get you out of here."
I'm like, oh jeez. So Daryl roots around in the back of the vehicle. And I mean, they talk about a lucky choice of vehicle. I mean, good job, Ash.
Good job.
Because
Ash.
in the back they've got a dart gun and a couple of those, super zombie
serum.
Yeah. I was like, juice? Is that the word I'm looking for? No.
No, juice is not.
Serum is better. Serum is better. And so at first I was like, I don't know what he's doing here. Like, I don't know what his plan is. So he shoots two of them and they turn from ghoul to da-da-da-da-da, super ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
And then they attack. But they attack all the ghouls around the car.
Yeah.
And we can hear that there's carnage happening and there's blood is getting splattered all over the car. And good attention to detail, it's not red. It's more like off color red. It's like dead. It's almost like it's been exposed. So it's not fresh. Right. So good job, Nicotero. He knows.
And you watched the featurette, right?
I didn't because I watched the broadcast version.
In the featurette, they talked to Nicotero about this scene, and first off, he says that it was fun because it's kind of the ghouls are kind of a mixture. There's a lot of ghouls that are old and have been zombies for a long time, and so they're very gray and decomposy and big prosthetic stuff of pieces hanging off them and whatnot. But then there's also a large contingent of very fresh ghouls because a lot of these are Genet's people that have clearly there was a firefight or, they were shooting at each other, whatever. And these are all people that just recently died. And so they just have like they're very intact. And so you kind of have this mixture of them. And so he said, first of all, that was really fun to do because it gave them, it was not just, oh, we need another old zombie. Okay. It was sort of, they got to play around, but then they showed them, shooting the scene. And of course, the great thing is that when they shoot the darts, then Daryl gets back in through the sunroof and they close it up. And it's like, literally it's shot from inside the car.
Yeah.
And so you can't really see what's going on because all the windows of this car very quickly are covered in blood and gore, and you can't see out of them, right? So like you said, it is, it's really cool. And you just hear, what's going on, and you hear the blood splashing, and and then the sort of this like sound of people getting torn to shreds kind of thing, but you really don't see what's going on. Well, they showed them shooting that scene, and so all the ghouls are pressing up against the windows of the car, and they literally have like a hose with blood, and then they either had tied lines to some of these people or they just grabbed them and they just yank them out of the way. So from inside the car, you'll see somebody pressed up against the window and all of a sudden they go, yeah, and they're gone. Yeah. And then as soon as they're going, blood is like being projected through this hose onto the windshield or the window. And they do it in sequence. So it's like, driver's side door, windshield, passenger side door, rear passenger side door. Yep. Rear window, and so it goes all the way around. But anyway, it's really fun to see them shooting that sequence and how they did it with the ripping them off and then shooting the blood. And so then when they come out of the SUV, all that's really left are the two super ghouls. They've eliminated all the other ghouls that are there. And so they take them out. So those two are dead. And so now they can go, and they step out, and you just see, I mean, like literally they can't touch the ground. There are so many dead bodies. Yep. All around this car. It's great. It is. And so there's a little bit in the behind the scenes thing where they're setting up that scene to shoot. And so they got all these extras lying around the car. And I'm not kidding you. Norman Reedus is walking around, and he's got this like jug, like a milk jug, a plastic milk jug full of fake blood, and he's like tossing it, with big thrusts, like he'll throw, he'll like take it and he'll go, ugh, and a big bit of it'll come out, and he's just like applying blood to all of these extras that are on the ground to kind of make them look bad. And it's, at one point, Nicotero's like, "Oh, come on, that girl isn't even in the scene, Norman," and he's just laughing maniacally. It was very fun to kind of get a little glimpse of them just kind of playing, in between takes. But yeah, clearly the set piece of the episode, in terms of the action and stuff. But and bloody gory as all get out, but at the same time, really cleverly staged in that you don't really see what's happening.
I think that was brilliant because sometimes less is more, and in this case. Sometimes, I think it was Stephen King said it one time too, where sometimes the thing that is the scariest is the thing you don't see. You don't see, and we've worked in theater, so it's like the thing that happens off stage. And this is almost the same idea as that. This is the horror that happened off stage that's almost being described to you. You won't know exactly what happened until you open that car door just slightly to sort of look around. Yeah. And even so, were you expecting to see what you saw? And it's just pieces everywhere.
Oh God.
And I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. You had an idea, but then, so we sort of went on that journey with them. It was hidden away from sight. You couldn't tell what was happening at any time. And you had to sort of make it up in your mind. And then as the door's opening, you're like, oh God, what's it going to look like?
Oh, yeah. And what's left still out there? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like pieces all over the place.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, what most people will tell you, the first half of Jaws is much scarier than the second half because you never see the shark. And your imagination is building it up and building it. Well, oh my God, what is this? What is it? Oh my, yeah. And again, we know what sharks look like, but at the same time, you're like, I haven't seen it, And Ridley Scott very famously said when he was making Alien, if you watch the movie Alien, the grown up, like adult grown ass man alien, you don't see all that much. There's very few shots of it in the movie, like where you really see it and it's well lit and so on. And it's because he always said the biggest problem he had with monster movies is that ultimately the monster is just a guy in a suit.
Yep.
And so how do you scare people is, well, you have to not let them see that it's just a guy in a suit, and you have to do that creatively like they did in this sequence, and it works. And again, your imagination, infinitely more powerful than anything even Greg Nicotero can come up with. So
exactly. Yeah, so it was a really good end to that scene, and they're able to make it out, and they take Ash out of there and have to sort of carry him a little bit, and
well, they go back to the plane.
Yep, they go back to the hangar, and they've got two. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think like either right before that scene or right after, we get the second Quadron and Laurent scene where they're talking about bananas and all that stuff, and then Lo Sang shows up
right
at the rooftop group, and Laurent and Quadron hide, and they're Lo Sang's trying to like tell everyone, hey, he's like, we're looking for the boy. And I loved it because the woman that's in charge of the rooftop, who she's like, well, we sent the boy to you, and he's like, well, and now he's gone, and she's like, well, we'll have to look for him. Come on, everybody, let's organize search parties and all that. And he almost buys it.
Almost worked. God, it
almost buys it, and then he freaking sees that gosh darn Rubik's cube. Right. And that's when he's like, oh, yeah, he's here. But then again, they're trying to spirit him away, and Falou sees them. And so Falou creates a diversion by pulling a knife on one of the guys that have guns. And then he, once they get in the clear, he drops the knife and he's like, sorry, you're right. I'm whatever. And I thought there was a great exchange between Falou and Lo Sang, because Lo Sang is talking about how, we have to have the boy because it's going to prove that our faith is right, that, we are right to believe in him. We're going to have proof. And I know we both wrote down Falou's response to that. When he just
quoted the whole episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and again, as much as Ash has the moral high ground with Carol, clearly Falou has the moral high ground with Lo Sang, and he literally says, that's what faith is, and if you need proof, you've already lost it. And I mean, like Lo Sang, like he gets like the little like eye twitch from like the Pink Panther movies, right? I mean, he's just like, he's like, Clouseau, I mean, it just like clearly bothered him. And then what even was better is that then like the whole group starts like the slow clap after that for that line.
That was amazing.
It was like, what a double burn on this guy,
He's basically like, ugh, we're out of here.
I know, that's it. I'm never coming here again.
Away like a woman, you know what I mean? It was great.
Right, it was. Yeah. It was really fun. But then, so anyway, that scene happens. And of course, while they're doing that, Laurent and Quadron actually like make it up to the roof, and they're like, clearly you get the sense that they escape from that location and get away. Yes. And so then it cuts back, and now we have Daryl and Carol and Ash is kind of recovering, and they're giving him some water to drink, and you just kind of rest. And then Carol and Daryl go out and they sit in the bleachers or the grandstands of this what used to be like a racetrack, and that this is where finally she comes clean and tells Daryl, well, okay, I kind of said that we were looking for Sophia, and blah blah blah, to get him here. And Daryl is, he's not, I'm sure Daryl doesn't approve, but he doesn't chastise her for it. He's just like, okay, and I think his big response is, well, you got to tell him, if I'm not mistaken, right? Isn't that what he kind of says in that moment where they're kind of sitting there, and he's like, you got to come clean. He deserves to know. And
Right.
and I think at that point they determined they still needed like 50 gallons of fuel before they could
Yep.
make it back. And so Daryl's like, I will go get the fuel. You clear everything up with Ash, because I don't want to be anywhere near you when you have this conversation. It gonna blow up in your face. And so
Plus, he'll associate, like I was saying earlier, he's gonna associate Daryl with all of this lie and everything.
right, even though he is completely innocent. He's like, shit, I didn't know she was gonna do that.
Yeah.
So he so then we get the the storyline breaks off into two parts where he has to go back to the underground club to try and get fuel, and then we have Carol, trying to explain to Ash what she meant when she said that she was looking for Sophia. What she really meant was she was looking for a 40-year-old grown-ass man. See.
Yep.
But let's do the underground first. Is that they go there, and of course Falou and Laurent are there.
Right. Cadron and Falon.
Oh, sorry, Quadron is right. And so again, and Anna, again, for whatever reason, Anna's just like totally on board with like, sure, I'll help you with whatever you want, which is weird because, she kind of ratted them out and Quinn out in the last season at the first chance she got.
I think he's very accepting too, because she was like, I did what I had to do. And he was like, fair enough.
Yeah.
Which is true. She did what she had to do, but she still has affection for Laurent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a part of it. And I think honestly, this is gonna sound really, really weird, but I think after a while it must get boring. Like, and Daryl is a new face and a new, whatever. So I think she's just enjoying, like, he's like a project,
Yeah.
And helping him in any way is still kind of sticking it to Quinn, even though Quinn's gone.
Yeah. And you're right. I think she sees him as like, he's like chaos.
Yeah.
Like wherever he goes, like, people get killed, stuff blows up. I mean, it's interesting times. Right. And so if she can kind of like keep that going, like you said, it will alleviate the boredom, which I assume it has to happen on some level, because she now is kind of like the top dog. And once you're at the top, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
It probably would get a little old after a while, even though it's probably everything she always wanted and all that. It's the same thing. You're like, there's nothing else to do.
Boredom.
But so anyway, she's like, well, give you the fuel. And so they're getting that ready. And I think at that point, Daryl's like, hey, Laurent, you should come with me back to America, because that's what Isabel wanted you to do. And Laurent's like, yeah, I can't do it, Sally. And and basically says, I need it here. This is where I am. You need to go home to your people. This is where I should be. And Daryl's like, I don't understand. Tell me why. And is getting in his face about it. And finally, Laurent comes clean and says, because I don't want you to die.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's a really nice scene.
It is. And Daryl's like, kid, have you seen the title of the show?
Right.
But Daryl is this like, what are you talking about? And he just says, everybody else that is taking care of me in basically my entire life has died because of me.
Yep.
That's a lot to put on like a 12-year-old.
Yeah. And I'm sure Daryl just didn't even think about that,
No.
Because as adults, we don't connect those things together. We understand that things happen like separately and whatever, and they aren't connected that way. But kids, they just don't get it. And they think that, they weave them all together. And Daryl just didn't even think about that as a reason for that Laurent would even think those things,
Yeah. And we did pass over when Daryl and Carol first went to the rooftop community and Laurent was there. Mm-hmm. Daryl did kind of pull him aside because Laurent's like, so where's Izzy? And Daryl's like, I got to talk to you for a minute. It's just like, oh God,
Yep.
So he did get that news that, and by the way, somebody else that you're really cared about is also gone, right? And there's that scene, he's looking at the picture and he's like, now she's with my mom. And I mean, all this horrifically sad stuff. But anyway, so the kid doesn't want to go. He's like, no, I'm not gonna let them get you too, that kind of thing.
Oh, so sad.
Oh, it is. And then right in the middle of that, that's when Lo-Sang and all of his armed thugs show up. Yeah. And I love this line because they try and spirit Daryl and the kid away with Quadron, and so she's gonna like kind of stall, and so she walks up to Lo-Sang and she's like, "You must be the Hope guy."
She's not wrong.
That was a great line. And then like she has like one of her girls, this I thought a really, really, really attractive blonde lady. She's like, don't let him up the stairs. And so like Lo-Sang is trying to like go up this like revolving, circular staircase thing, and this girl is on there and she like puts her leg up over the railing and she's just like, check it out, and Lo-Sang's like, yeah, no sale, man, let's get out of the way. But anyway, so they come up and then they find out they've gone into the catacombs, and so they follow, and then we kind of get this underground kind of combat scene where both Quadron and Daryl absolutely wipe out these people to the man, and so some great kills.
Oh my God, yeah.
When Quadron gets the one dude and he puts the gun under his chin and just blows the top of his head off, right? That was pretty cool. And with Daryl again, kind of going back to the ghouls surrounding the car, we don't see him take out those two guys, but we hear it.
Yes.
And then Lo-Sang turns around and comes back to where they were, and you see like one of them's on the ground and he's still kind of twitching and like kind of gurgling, like, and it's just like, yeah, okay, this ain't gonna end well for you, Lo-Sang. But anyway, I have to say, were you surprised that they took out Lo-Sang in this episode?
I was. I thought that he might last a little longer, only because if you remove Lo-Sang, I mean, yes, obviously Jacinta makes it, spoiler, but it's like, I feel like we're not going to wrap up Laurent in one more episode. Whatever is going to happen with Laurent, whether people are in pursuit of him or if he decides to stay in France or if he goes to whatever it is, it's going to bleed into season 3. So there'll be some more Laurent in season 3, I feel. Mm-hmm. So what's the motivation for Laurent to be moving around? And it just feels like Lo-Sang was like such a big part of that. I don't think Sabine gives a crap about that. They were just aligning with them to sort of create this new...
It's like super group.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Sabine doesn't, but I think Jacinta does. I think Jacinta is even more of a zealot than like comparing the two of them. Lo-Sang was like the more like liberal of the two of them, where he wasn't quite in the attitude of, if they're not on our side, kill them all, which I really get the feeling she is.
Yeah.
And so
she was the one that was pushing for them to start to do the ceremony thing early,
Exactly, right? And so, I just think she's a little bit more of a, like, blood is the way here, and if you're, you're not with us, you're against us, like that kind of thing. Yeah. I'd say I was very surprised. I thought, I mean, clearly once he killed Daryl's girlfriend, his days are numbered in terms of walking around. But I thought for sure if it was going to happen, it would be next week.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a penultimate episode thing. It felt like a finale thing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is when they put the scene together, I felt like it was a little too on the nose for the whole thing to happen in the catacombs. And that was my one big complaint about that fight scene. And I really, really liked almost all of the rest of the fight scene. I thought it was intense and on the edge of your seat. And, Daryl is so experienced. And then Quadron approaches it with like a military feel, so everything they did was wait in the shadows and attack. And I thought that was really interesting. But it took some reflection. Like, it took the scene actually to end I was like, why would you hide Laurent like that?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to stay there. I was so surprised he did.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he's not going to stay there. He's going to want to be like, where's Daryl? And then walk out and someone's going to grab him or he's going to get, stabbed or something's going to happen. So that did not pan out the way I thought it was going to, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But then it dawned on me after like Daryl, he absolutely destroys Losang. He like pommeled him with a skeleton head,
skull.
Yeah. And it's like, and there's a lot of pain in what he did and retribution. And I don't think he wanted Laurent to see that. I think he knew if given the chance, he was going to destroy Losang for what he did to
Izzy. There's no dead.
Yeah.
Dead man walking. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. But given the chance to kill him, he knew it was going to be bloody, and he didn't want Laurent to see that, especially with all he's gone through and having to deal with Isabelle is gone now, and he, Sylvie and all this other stuff. So I think he very wisely was like, okay, you stay here. You shouldn't have to see what I'm about to do.
Right.
Because if it didn't work out, then Daryl's going to die, and then he doesn't want Laurent to see that either. So
yeah.
So,
I did chuckle when he puts him in there, and Laurent's like I'm afraid you won't come back, and Daryl's like, when have I never not come back?
And I was like, he makes a fair point. He's like,
point,
dude, look whose name is on this TV show. Right. You're gonna see me again.
I trust me, kid. I ain't going nowhere. I'm the executive producer. Again, it hit me the second time I watched it, and I thought, oh wow, would that have been interesting? Because when he puts him in that little cubby hole, I got a total flashback to Rick having Sophia hide in the reeds.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, almost to the point of Rick said, do not move. Stay here. I will be back for you. And so
and
I
was gone when he came back.
And I thought, holy crap, they're going to do this whole thing where Daryl's going to go off. He's going to kill the bad guys, and it's going to be all, rainbows and balloons. He's going to come back, and the kid is gone. And then they're going to do the Sophie on him.
Yeah.
And I thought, would that have just been killer to try and do, right?
Yeah.
But again, it would be really interesting because now it's not Carol dealing with the lost child, it's Daryl.
Yeah.
Which would be different, and Carol now is trying to comfort him, and is she the one that's going to put the rose on the table and say, I think it bloomed for him, and all, are we going to get like the role reversal? And maybe I thought, wow, is that how they're going to power in for setting up season 3? Season 3 is going to be, where's Laurent? Where did he go? What happened to him? Because the Where's Sophia, that took like a big chunk of that season of season 2.
Yeah. Those first few,
so they could do a 6-episode season of Where's Laurent, and it wouldn't feel like, well, we got to wrap this up,
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was really an interesting choice, and they do not talk about it in the featurette, so I don't know if that was conscious on their part of like, ooh, this will be a nice callback to that sequence.
Sophia,
but they do show them filming the scene where he's using the skull and bashing what we assume to be Losang's brains out, and I spoiler alert on how the sausage is made. He's actually hitting a big mat with a yellow X on it of tape, so kind of takes a little bit out of the moment there, don't it? But
that's all right. I didn't think he was actually killing Losang,
no,
I'm okay with that. But that's interesting.
Yeah, and then of course Quadron, he kind of has his Indigo Montoya moment, because Jacinta like stabs him like right almost in where the heart would be with a fairly long knife.
Yeah.
And she kind of backs away and has this kind of grin on her face like, well, I've taken care of you.
And he's like, yeah, I don't think so.
And he just literally stands up and he pulls the knife out and just drops it. and then he walks up to her and he picks her up and he like throws her against the wall really, really hard. But then again, this is an of course moment in that like when Daryl finally knocks Losang with the skull in like he like puts it in like that leather thing and like swings it like this Morning Star kind of a thing.
Yep.
There's no hesitation. He grabs the skull and he just kills him. Yep. I mean, it's like you're dead. And yet, Quadron doesn't. Quadron just throws her against the wall, and it's just like, well, she's done, and he leaves, right? And so I thought, well, okay, that clearly they want to bring that character back, and we do, because the very last scene is her kind of going, so she's not, so she's still around. And again, that's going to set up the season finale, and I'm sure they'll kill her, and then it'll be the other girl for next season, right? Because they've just been going through it's been the arch villain.
Roulette.
Every day it's a different one, right? It's the du jour, So they end up killing all the bad guys, and then Daryl and Quadron, I think he was going with them to a point. I can't remember. Does he not? Anyway, Daryl and the kid get back to the hangar and they've got all the fuel. I remember that, but Quadron, I guess maybe he stayed at the underground club or something. I don't know. He was wounded, right? I mean, he did. They did the standard thing in The Walking Dead that when you have a shoulder wound, the next scene, if you're still alive, your arm's in a sling. Because that'll make it better. But So you're right. That's what I'm thinking about it, because that's when Daryl goes, "I owe you one," and they kind of shake hands. Which kind of like tells you, okay, they're no longer at war with each other, and that Daryl, I think, trusts him a little bit, at least when it comes to the kid.
Yeah, but only with the kid.
Yeah, but anyway, so that sets up just one of the greatest almost apologies in the history of The Walking Dead, I think.
Oh God, yeah. So we get the Carol confesses to Ash scene,
But we should set it up by, before she does it, Ash like tells her, like is like thanking her, and she's like, for what? And he's like, you like got me to move past my guilt for my son with this noble quest to find your daughter. And she's just like, oh, I don't like where this is heading. I mean,
it's not that big of a deal, really.
It was nothing, but anyway, so he's just like gushing about how great this is that it got him outside and he's back he's living again, and it's so great. And she's just like, oh crap, I got something to tell you.
You might need to sit down for this one.
But and literally at that point, don't you think, you know what, Carol, just take this one to the grave.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just tell him, you know what, Sophia died a long time ago. I have no details. I found her grave and she's dead. And it sucks, but whatever. Oh, and by the way, I found this Daryl guy who happened to be, I know him, and I didn't even know he was here. I mean, they could have concocted some crazy ass story, and that just, again, isn't there just something? I mean, Daryl's right, the guy should know, but it's like, really, he's in a really good place. Let him have it, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay. Anyway, she doesn't, and she then begins to tell him, okay, the reason why. How do you even start this explanation? It's just like, oh God, it's so great.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, hey, by the way, while you were talking about your son, it reminded me, my daughter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made that whole story up.
Yeah, I mean, I had a daughter, but that was a long time ago. And God. I mean, it's just, and again, there's just some great lines, and we did the one where she's like, I told you what I needed to convince you to help me, and he's like, so that makes it all right, hello, which is great. And then later on, Ash like is just reading her the riot act, and he's like, I mean, using your dead daughter to manipulate me, what kind of person does that? And I'm thinking to myself, a sociopath. Hello. Hello. Yeah. And so I mean, he and again, she just has to take it. There's nothing she can say. I mean, all of her it's funny as she's trying to explain, it's like making it worse. Right, where she's kind of, it's funny. It's like as she's trying to explain and he's questioning each part of the explanation, it's almost like she's like becoming a little bit more honest and actually telling him, well, I did whatever I had to convince you to help me. Like you don't understand. And then again, he's right there to hammer her with like, that doesn't make it better, and all these things. I kept thinking to myself, Carol, karma is a bitch. Right?
It sure is.
Oh yeah. And so then the very last scene of the episode is Daryl comes back and Laurent is there, and Laurent is like, I've never been in a plane before. This is going to be really fun. And Ash just kind of looks at him and goes, you realize that like we'll never be able to take off with all of you fat ass people in my plane. And he ends it up by saying, Paris, we have a problem. And he walks away. And so we're kind of left with this idea of, well, what if one person were to stay behind? Would then the plane be able to take off? Okay, right. Who's going to do that? And I think in the scenes for next week, we kind of get a little of that as well. There's sort of like a back and forth, like like I'll do it, I'll stay, and all that. So we're gonna see that, and again, the bad guys, we are gonna eventually find them because there is a scene of them like trying to take off, and the scenes, and people are shooting at them and all that stuff. But anyway, we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, it's not quite as easy as Carol was hoping that they'd all just get in the plane and go. Because
there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about probably another, 250 pounds of weight that they have to account for with Daryl and Laurent, and again, that's including all the fuel and all that stuff. So yeah, there's going to be a few issues, I think. And of course, is Ash even going to want to go? Ash might tell both of them to go screw themselves, and
Yeah, I'll be able to get really far with this 50 gallons of fuel and no other people in my plane.
I mean, now Ash has nowhere to go to because, as you remember, his compound burned to the ground very conveniently in episode 1 or episode 2. But, still, he could certainly just be like, yeah, screw you guys. I'm not taking you guys anywhere. And
I'm going to Greenland.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to go have some happy time with, and there's got to be some more crazy Scientology or environmentalists there, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So, why wouldn't there be?
Yeah. So anyway, episode, it was okay. There were again some great little moments, some wonderful scenes, but again, not amazing, not terrible, just kind of like right in the middle.
Yeah, I probably like a small handful of scenes that I really, really liked. Like the Cadron and the Laurent scenes were great. I did like the carnage of the, the ghouls outside the car. I liked a couple of the one-liners they gave to Falou because I love Falou. I think he's a great character. He's adorable. But the rest of it was just kind of like, and I really like Anna. I like her character. And I love that she has all this power now, but she's sort of falling under, she's doing the same things that Quinn did. She's doing the same things that all other, evil people in charge do. And so she's becoming kind of stereotypical, which is unfortunate because she's a cool character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out next week because it's they got a lot of room to grow because it wasn't fantastic by any stretch. No. But we did a good job. We covered a lot of these quotes and lines and things. Anything on your list that we didn't quite get to that you want to cover?
There was one moment when Carol and Daryl first get to the rooftop community the first time. And they see Laurent, and I think it's like, you have to assume it's like the next day. And Carol is kind of walking around, and she's just marveling at how, like, you see, like, the guy, and he's on the grill, and he's kind of singing a French song while he's making breakfast, and people are, doing their vegetable gardening and they all have their own little jobs, and they all seem very content and happy. And then she sees this, like, young girl at one of the garden spots, and she has her back to her, and she has a total Sophie flashback, because she kind of looks like her from the back, and she's kind of dressed in the same kind of clothing, and we get a little bit of the barn freak out moment, and it was interesting that they again wanted to hammer us with this, this is really a problem for Carol suddenly that she's never had before in the last 12 years of the show, but now it's really bothering her. And I also liked when they're on the road and Daryl is kind of talking about how it's his fault that Izzy is dead, and Carol kind of basically says, it's you're rethinking every decision, you're going over everything you did and trying to figure out where you could have done something different that would have made a difference. And she basically says the past just becomes one big giant hole of what ifs. And she's basically telling him you can't do that, kind of like almost in a way, he's almost in Laurent territory of like, Izzy's dead because of me, because everybody dies around me, which with Daryl happens to be true. But in this case, he's like, this is awful. Just like Laurent's like, everybody who's protecting me ends up dead, and I can't do it anymore. I can't have more people die. And this is Carol's way of saying basically what you said while we were talking about it, which is, as an adult, you have to realize that everything is not connected that way. And, Isabel made her own choices. And, she knew what was at stake, and she knew she was risking, and she was willing to take that risk. And it didn't work out, which is awful, but it's not your fault. And, I mean, I've never been in that situation, but I would imagine that's very hard to come to grips with.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of like that little sequence as well. I thought that was kind of cool. So.
Yeah, I had one line too that inside the club, the Demi-Monde, Daryl and Anna were having this one moment together, and they were talking about like the Guerriers and people in charge and who has the power and stuff like that. They were sort of going back and forth, and she was commenting on Americans, and I thought it was hilarious that she says, "At least you guys don't fall for fascists," and I'm like,
yeah.
It's news for you.
It's hilarious now. Like in 10 days, maybe not so hilarious. You never know.
Yeah, well, hopefully in 10 days it'll be hilarious because the good stuff will happen. But I just thought it was just really adorably sort of little pointed moment there. I was like, oh, look at you poking fun at the Americans. Thanks a lot.
That right there, that's about as political as this show will get. Absolutely. Tongue in cheek, absolutely. And they didn't even come right out and say anything. They were just, make it a little funny. Yeah.
A little jab, a little funny.
Yeah, that was good.
And some people probably didn't even catch it. But here we are to point it out for you.
That's right. So that's what we're here for, people.
We've done our jobs.
That's
so, I think I hit all of my points. Are you good?
I think I'm good, yeah.
Excellent. Look at that. We covered it all. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, everybody. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what's coming up on the podcast.
All right. So, everybody, please stick around. We shall be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hey, this is Patricia Tallman, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. Don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work, and I should know.
Hey everybody, we're back. We are going to start right off with our feedback. What a great idea.
Sounds like a plan.
I was like, well, I say jump right in every week, and I was like, there's got to be a different way to say that. But I did it while I was talking, and I had to think, and that's hard to do, people, especially when you get to an advanced age like mine. Yes. So we're going to start right off with our listener feedback for these episodes. So
we will now begin to cover our listener feedback for this week.
That's
better?
Good. That's very, very good. And yes, with that kind of intensity, please.
All right.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I will start because you clearly need to collect your thoughts.
Without question.
Yes. And so our first piece of feedback, and this is actually for last week's episode. It kind of came in right under the wire. And we had already finished recording, or we were very close to finishing recording when it did show up. So we just figured we'd save it for this week. And this comes from our pal, Teresa Harper. Hello,
Yay!
Teresa. Always love it when you comment and what's going on. And she sent this via the Facebook. And she says, I know that there are a lot of negative comments, but I love the show for what it is. A show about zombies with the characters, and I repeat, characters I have grown to love. It's a TV show. It's not real, LOL. Of course, there are going to be things in it that don't correspond with real life. I don't nitpick. I just enjoy it for what it is. I loved it. I wished Isabel would have lived longer, but it is what it is. We only have 6 episodes to tell us this story, and they have to move it along quickly. I got my Carol Daryl reunion, and I cried, and then I laughed at all their banter back and forth. LOL. Thanks for covering. Love you guys.
Aww,
that's so sweet. And I love it. And you don't have to defend anything, Teresa. You know, love what you love, like what you like, hate what you hate. That's like we always say, that's art. That's the best part about it. And if you're digging the show, great. That's awesome. I think, for the most part, Diane and I are digging this season a lot too. So we are right there with you. So but thank you for writing in. Maybe I don't want to critique here, but maybe you want to try and do it a little, sooner rather than later, but that's again, whatever. We love that you're writing and sending in your thoughts. So
we also wanted to make sure people know too, if you send in your thoughts, even if they are a little bit late, we'll do everything we can to include them on the next episode. As long as we're still covering the same show.
Yes.
Because if it's a month from now and we're doing some horror movie, it'd be really weird.
It'd be a little weird, but we've done it before. I know Andy.
It's been done.
Andy from Germany, we've done some of his feedback when we were like, well, that show finished, but he wanted to comment on the finale. Here it is. So absolutely. So please keep the comments coming.
Keep them coming. All right. So speaking of Andy, next up we got an email from Andy again about episode 4 from last week.
Bonjour, Andy.
Bonjour, Andy. And Andy says, hi, La Steve and Diana, which is amazing. Thank you. Since the first season of The Walking Dead had 6 episodes, it would probably also have been a success if they would have made all seasons like this. Shots fired.
Maybe.
The perfect length for the Daryl series would be 4 episodes. Oh my God. The 4th episode is the perfect finale. The story is told. Why add 2 more episodes? I don't get what they want to do in those. Oh, he's going to hate this week's episode. Mm-hmm. I get that Sabine teams up with Losang because while she's the ruler, he can be her high priest. Interesting. But Sabine is not a cult member, so she knows that Laurent will die if he is bitten. Therefore, she won't permit this to happen. Or did she turn into a believer suddenly because of plot convenience? Well, that remains to be seen. I think we'll have to sort of see how that rolls out. It would have been quite easy to explain why Carol survives the injection without her sturdy leather jacket. They could have simply said the serum has no effect on living people. But then they couldn't have done the silly aggression death scene. It's simply style over substance. Like with those super zombies, they could have just as well led a classic herd to the store, but sprinting walkers are more stylish, so we get them. By the way, where was sociopath Carol when she met the deadly wounded Isabel? Why did she waste time with her? It's funny, that he says that. And I kind of agree with him. It was one of the things in last week's episode that made me stop and go, what about Isabel made Carol stop and want to help her? And so, you know what I mean? Was there something outward about her that made Carol, because she didn't know, she had no idea who she was.
Right.
Yeah.
All she knew was that, Isabella had like a, major stab wound to her abdomen.
Yeah.
And was clearly wounded in a very, very, bad way. But you're right. It's like, why, you're like, Carol up till that point had just been randomly shooting people she had seen guarding the gate. So it's like, why stop with her? And
exactly.
Again, I think it's like you said, it's convenience. It's, we needed to have a scene with Carol and Isabel. The storytellers did. And so, okay, in this case, the sociopath went away for a minute, and Carol suddenly pretends to, upends her whole mission to kind of take care of this girl that she just met on the side of the road. It does. And when you look at it, with your viewpoint there, Andy, you're right. It does stick out and not really fit with what we've seen so far. So good call. Good call.
Yeah. So he continues on and says, I am unsure about what Carol said, who, quote unquote, came back. If it really was bad writing and the showrunners had no good explanation, why did they do this scene at all? We don't know.
Good point.
Yeah, so I think Carol could be lying because it's necessary for a twist in the future that Daryl doesn't know that Rick returned. Greetings from Germany, Andy. P.S. This is so great. By the way, when we met Virginia leading the pioneers at Fear, you two complained why those guys would follow the woman. But two cleaning ladies leading the French army seems not to bother you?
Yeah. Well,
listen,
okay.
He makes a fair point.
He does make a fair point, but first of all, okay, let's remember the French army's battle cry is "We give, don't hurt the Louvre," and I think there is a massive difference between Genet and Ginny. Genet, there was gravitas there, and she, when she threatened you, you believed it.
Yeah.
At least I did. Whereas with Ginny, I never felt, she was just, again, I love the actor, but I think that character was just terrible. And just, there was never she had no substance behind her at all. And so that's why I found it hard to believe. Whereas Genet, I think Genet, I got the sense with her that, this woman, she will, you look at her funny, she'll kill you. Without blinking an eye. Would you agree? Do you think that's?
Yeah, and I just think there's something. This is gonna sound really weird, but Genet's sort of vibe that she gave off was very, I guess, like militaristic and like straight-laced and like tucked away, and she's very like, she's very conservative almost, you know what I mean? And like Ginny's out there like sounding like Southerner like this with like a loose accent, and she's wearing this floppy hat, and like they're all in like Western gear, which I know, and this is all stereotyping, and I'm very sorry, but there's such a level of casualness to Western wear. And Genet literally looked like she was the leader of a group of people that all marches in like lockstep with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Ginny's people, you could tell from the beginning, everything was kind of loosey-goosey. And then and Ginny's personality was very sort of loose as well. She was kind of all over the place. Whereas Genet, we met her first as like, I am this very precise person. I would like things to be done this way. She speaks very evenly and da-da-da-da. And she also didn't get emotional about stuff. She didn't show a lot of the stuff. Whereas like Ginny was like all over the place. I'm so upset about this thing. And, so it's just like Genet was way more mature. And I mean, that's definitely an age thing. I think she probably had a good 15 years on
At
Ginny,
least.
maybe.
Yeah.
And so, I think one of the things that I found impressive about Genet, sorry to get off the path of this, of the feedback, but the thing that I thought was impressive is here's this woman who's very, she's in charge. She's very like, people are following her. She's got a lot of power. But to see where her genesis came from, that she was, in a lot of ways, the fact that she was the cleaning lady, it makes me look at her with a lot more, I don't want to say respect, but there's something there for it. Like, she took like where she was and became this other thing. Just shows how strong of a person and a character that she is, because she was able to come from something like that and then get people to follow her. That's not easy to do.
No. And I think it's that. And I think it just kind of reflects on who's left alive in the world, that, the leader of like the fascist French movement is a cleaning lady. That's her background, because all of like the military guys and gals, they're gone, right? They're not around anymore, right? So this woman has kind of picked up the pieces and built this little empire. And again, I mean, Andy, you're not wrong. It is certainly, we're certainly being a little hypocritical in that we mercilessly picked on Ginny, and there's no way that those cowboy guys would follow this little girl around, and yet we never even brought it up when we talked about Janae. But again, like you said, Diana, I think it's in the presentation, in that Janae is always in like a military style uniform kind of a thing, right? And everybody around her dressed in black, and I mean, they just had that look of like, this is like a military organized group. Whereas like the Ginny, like the people she had, they were like at a cookout somewhere. I mean, so it's a little bit different, but good point, Andy. Absolutely good point.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for writing in, Andy. We love your perspective, and
we do.
And he does a good job, I think, of challenging some of our stuff, which I think is great, because it makes you, if someone doesn't challenge what you believe or say or how you feel about stuff, you know what I mean? You've got to be able to stand behind the strength of it. So thanks, Andy. Absolutely.
And I look forward to seeing next week what you thought about this week. So
exactly.
It'll be good. All right. Thanks. Well, let's move right along. We're going to stick on the international desk here, and we're going to talk to our pal Bev from Devon. So hello, Bev.
Hello.
Hopefully everything's going well with you. And she starts out by saying, hi, both. I hope you've had a great week. After all the time we spent fixing that car last week, the bloody thing breaks down. Yes, technically we never even saw them driving in that car, if you think about it.
Not really,
right? No, so it's pretty great. She goes, nice to see Ash is still alive and so easily saved. Are the walkers even a concern anymore? Because Daryl and Carol seem to fight their way in and out of that car fairly easily. Were we aware that the Supergirl's ghouls destroy their inferior counterparts? I think... they didn't specifically show them doing that, but what they have shown in the past with the Supergirls is that they're just like uncontrollable and attack anything. And I think that's what Daryl was banking on, of like, well, they're not going to eat the other ghouls, but they're just going to rip them to shreds because they're on aggression, and I mean, that's just what they're going to do. So, but it's a good point. They didn't actually say that, but anyway, it was a cool scene. She goes on to say, I was impressed that Laurent stayed hiding in the little cove in the catacombs. Normally when kids are told to stay put, they always do the opposite. I thought for sure that our new bad guy would stumble across the kid, but instead he stumbled across an ass kicking from Daryl. Yes, he did. She goes, I think my favorite part of the entire episode was the time we spent in the nightclub. Carol's face was a picture when they first arrived there. I imagine that she's never been anywhere like that before. I think you're probably right. Yeah, Carol probably a little bit more conservative and probably never went to any of those kind of places back when the world was not full of ghouls. She goes on to say, all in all, that wasn't a bad episode. It just suffered from a need to get things done so quickly. Agreed. Meaning that our indestructible heroes plow through anyone that gets in their way easily. I agree. 6 episodes, there's no time for chitty chat. You got to move it along.
No kidding. Get it done, people.
Get it done, right? And she finishes by saying, my prediction for next week's episode, Ash takes Laurent back to the Commonwealth, and Daryl and Carol head off to Spain. who knows? Maybe at the end of next season, Ash will return with another member from the original show to help Daryl return home. Ash could fly an original cast member over every season until the entire gang are back together again. The show title might get a little bit long, though.
The Book of Carol, Chapter Rick, verse Michonne.
I can just see it'll be Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Eugene, Season 9. It'll be pretty great. She goes on by saying, looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Bev, in actually warm and sunny Devon. Well, good for you. I'm glad that it stopped raining.
Good news.
That is very good news. So, amazing feedback, Bev. Some very funny points, and that was good. So, thank you so much for writing.
I just want to say too that when I was collecting all the feedback to put in our notes, that when I grabbed the email from Bev, I read it as like kind of a run-on sentence, and I really thought that Bev was telling us that she spent all week working on fixing her car and now it doesn't work. Because it's like, I hope you've had a great week after all the time we spent fixing that car last week. And I was like, oh, she means the show. She's talking about the show.
Right,
I get it now. Oh my God. I was like, what's wrong with me? So sorry, Bev. I'm a goober. So many things are wrong with me. All right. So our last little bit of feedback that we got for this week's episode is from our pal Erica Price via the Facebooks. Hello, Erica.
Hello, Erica.
And Erica starts off with, bonjour, la Erica here. Mila Erica. You're adorable. She writes, I like this episode better than last week's heavy suspension of disbelief fest. Was there a little bit here too? Maybe, but I get it. Tomato. The dialogue was more heartfelt between characters like Cadron and Laurent. That I agree with. And
Absolutely.
The lie reveal between Carol and Ash went exactly like I thought it would. He's pissed and I don't blame him. No. Carol should have grabbed that giant gun off the desk in Maison Mare. Yes.
Yes. Again, it is a rapid firing machine gun, people. They could have cleaned out those ghouls.
Yeah. Daryl's smart, using the crazy variants to attack the walkers surrounding the car. Yes. But what if they'd just gotten rid of the walkers a different way and didn't have to even... Hey. Again, tomato. But yes, still great to use the variants. Very cool.
Diana,
Ding Dong Lo Sang is dead.
What do tomatoes taste like?
Tomatoes?
You don't know? You can't tell me.
No, they taste like tomatoes. Just like bananas taste like bananas.
Bananas taste like bananas, right? Yeah,
they do. All right, she says, Ding Dong Lo Sang is dead, but Jacinta's not. Ruh-roh. My prediction.
Here we go.
My prediction. Carol and Laurent go with Ash. Daryl stays and goes to Spain. That may be why they changed Carol's garbled phone conversation to, it was a feeling. If Daryl knew Rick was back, he'd be reading everything about how to fly a plane and leave Ash. Kidding! Daryl is too nice. Only one more.
Wow, that's interesting that we got two of our listeners predict that they're going to go to Spain. What's up with Spain, people? Why do you think they're going to head there?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah. Are they shooting in Spain next year? I mean,
yeah, they are.
Oh, okay.
They've already started shooting, and they've been very kind of, I don't want to say vocal, but they've been talking about it online. I haven't seen any pictures or anything like that, but it's just it's been like an announcement, like filming has started in Spain or
Well, yeah. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to set it in France. It just means that they maybe found a cheaper way to shoot it in Spain. I mean, right? I mean, that's
possible, or it could be doubling as a different part of France. Like we're not going to spend any time in Paris, so we don't need that. We're going to be in the countryside, and this section of Spain works really well.
Sure, yeah. I mean, again, it does.
But we'll see. Right. We'll see.
Yeah.
I also think it's very interesting that they're filming in Spain because there's a lot of religious architecture in Spain. Oh. So I just think going down that road, I still think it's possible myself. If we're talking predictions anyway, I still think it's possible that something happens where Laurent is taken away somehow, And I don't see Ash being a character that comes back. So he either leaves with just Carol or leaves and Carol and Daryl are both stuck behind. I don't know. But I think Ash leaves. I think he takes off in the plane. I think Laurent and someone stays behind, whoever that may be.
Okay.
I don't know.
That could be. That totally could be.
Yeah. And I think that season 3 will be about they try to spirit Laurent away someplace else, and it's trying to find him. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
We'll see.
We got to see what happens. It's very possible the plane won't be able to take off and they're all stuck.
I know. All right. So what's coming up next on the podcast? Well, guess what, people? We're already at the damn finale.
I know. So quick.
That's crazy. I know. So next week's episode 6, which is the season finale, is Au revoir, les enfants, which is goodbye, children. So you could take that literal, which is they're saying goodbye to Laurent, or it could mean something else entirely. Who knows?
Could be childhood's end. We don't know.
Yeah. So we did get a lot of really great, there's no descriptions yet, obviously. They keep that wrapped up. But at the end of the episode, there were some nice images. We do see Jacinta and Anna from the Demimonde sort of negotiating. I'll take this if you take that. Like, I'll help you. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. And
Anna's like, you can have the boy. I want the plane. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's going to come down to something like that. But it's it looks like it's going to obviously come to a head. And I'm just curious. Can't wait to see how it happens.
Well,
what happens?
There's a scene where we see Quadron and he's like shooting a machine gun and going, ah, and and there's this other scene of like vehicles and they're getting shot at, and you see a guy in a motorcycle jumping off of a ramp or something and flying through the air, and then there's the kind of the obligatory scene where it looks like all of them are in the plane and they're like trying to take off or taxi, and Ash is like, come on, and so again, lots of dramatic looking stuff that out of context we really don't know what's happening, but it should be interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see next week. Yay! I can't believe we're here already. It's kind of crazy.
That always goes so quick.
It does. It really does. So speaking of going quick, I made a comment last week about, maybe we'll do this thing where we, maybe between now and Halloween, I'll have you guys like give links to the movies we've covered and blah, blah, blah. Well, we're doing that, and it's great. It's been so much fun. So follow along. I've been using hashtag 12 Days of Horror, and there's still a few days left. We've got a couple more days before Halloween. And all we're doing is we're just, we're sort of counting down to Halloween and just doing some links to some previous conversations we had about different horror movies. And we've been having a lot of fun with it so far. We've had a really great list of movies, Evil Dead Rise, 28 Days Later, all of the Romero films, Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead. What?
The Thing.
Oh yeah, The Thing, Full Cheese, Zombie, and there's some more to come. Hellraiser for today, and then I'm really excited for the last 3. I think the last 3. Our conversation about The Thing, and I really loved our conversation we just had for Hellraiser, mostly because it's like right fresh in my mind.
Right.
But our final 3, I think, are I would say they're some of my favorite conversations we had, but also they're 3 of my favorite movies of the ones that we've covered.
Nice.
So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to see what you chose, although I have a few ideas.
Yeah. So we're going to be wrapping that up this week as well, because Halloween is just a mere handful of days away.
That's right.
Hope you guys have a good time. We made a comment last week. We want to comment again. There's still another little over a week here in the U.S. before Election Day. There's early voting possibilities. There's mail-in ballot possibilities. There's going on regular old election day possibilities. So lot of a lot of things at stake this year without even getting into the details, because we don't want to bore you with those, but just please get out and vote, get your friends to vote, get your family to vote, have a voting plan, see if there's, is there someone in your family that needs a ride, like rides, what about a neighbor? Do you have an old neighbor that, they're not going to vote because they can't make it to the polling place or whatever? Give someone a ride, like help someone out, like, because, that's just one more vote for, democracy, as it were. So just, democracy doesn't work unless we all show up, and no matter who you're going to vote for, you got to vote.
Just again, like I said last week, vote like your democracy depends on it. Because it does. Anyway.
I think that's going to wrap it up for us this week, guys. I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think we're good.
No, I just, the only thing is public appearance wise, coming up in November, we will have Days of the Dead Chicago in November. So that's at the end of the month, though. It's a good month away still, but it is on the horizon. So there you go.
Yes, it is. So that's going to wrap it up for us this week, guys. Thanks so much for coming along and listening. We look forward to talking season finale next week for Daryl Dixon. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm La Steve. Bonjour. And remember,
don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
For the opening, are we going to actually have Diana singing?
No, I'm going to speak it because it'll be like,
Wuss.